Hey, good morning, folks. Folks, if you can go ahead and take your seats, we're about to begin. Hopefully everybody got settled in last night after a night in Nashville. Tables are full, so that's good. Again, my name is Paul Conway. I serve as president of the American Association of Kidney Patients. I'm a transplant patient myself. Was on dialysis for 2 years and managed 13 years of a decline before I went on dialysis. So I've managed kidney disease for 35 years. I'd like to tell you that this morning we have a special guest with us. And at a time in America and around the world when a lot of people like to make news and talk about things that may not be right about America, we have a special opportunity this morning to show you something that is right and great about America. And that's one of America's hidden assets, and that's a representative of the United States Civil Service. Everybody here pays their taxes, is an American, works hard, and one of the great benefits we have in America is a United States Civil Service that goes through the transitions of political power and is always there. And in agencies like FDA, NIH, and CMS, these are the professionals that look out for all patients, but especially for patients like us. Many of their decisions are life and death decisions in terms of what they approve and what they look out for safety. And our speaker this morning knows a lot about that. She's from the Food and Drug Administration. She has a long history in the renal space. Her name is Dr. Carolyn Neuland, and she has a very distinguished background. And let me read you some of the highlights from her career. She's the branch chief at FDA that's in charge of renal devices. And what that means is all new renal devices that are coming into the space for people like us and for future patients. She and her team take a look at the safety issues, the approval issues, and all the regulatory compliance issues before that product comes onto the market. So she's the one that asks the tough questions. And she not only asks the tough questions on behalf of the taxpayer, but she's really asking the tough questions on behalf of people like us. Before she became the chief, in 1996, she had extensive experience as a scientific reviewer of medical devices. Before she came to FDA, she was a research scientist in the field of immunology at the National Naval Medical Center and Institute and the Uniformed Services University, where she collaborated with NIH investigators on studies in HIV. Dr. Neuland has a master's and PhD in microbiology and immunology from the University of Buffalo. And so when you listen to her today, I want you to look up here and understand that the person that's standing in front of you not only has a great deal of responsibility for patients like us, but she's also working for you as a civil servant. And I know that when Dr. Neuland stands here and looks out at your faces, she understands that you're the audience that she can impact the most. So with no further ado, Dr. Carolyn Neuland. Thank you.
Good morning. Paul, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Actually, I'd just like to turn that around to say that it is an honor for me to be here. It's an honor for me to be able to interact with patients that I approve medical devices for every day and to really see what the impact, and actually ask patients what the impact is of those devices. Over the last 4 years, we've spent a lot of time trying to get to patients, and I am just amazed when I sit down and talk to people about what they think of this world of devices. And most people, and before I went to the FDA, I knew nothing about medical devices. I didn't know what all those acronyms meant. I didn't know it. You know, they started rattling off this alphabet soup of things, of places I might be working, and I was just totally, it didn't make any sense to me until I got there. So I'm going to try today to give a little bit of an introduction to FDA and some of the initiatives we're doing with patient preference and patient involvement and getting the patient voice into the medical device arena. It's a sort of complex area, and if you fall asleep, somebody push your neighbor and say, wake up, and I'll try to make it a little more interesting. Too many times, I mean, this kind of government talk can be very boring, and I just want to really try to let you know where we think we're going and what we're hoping to achieve in the next, who knows, from now ever, because at this point in time, we feel patients are at the heart of what we do. And I think every reviewer, every person in the government needs to realize that, especially in the world of FDA. Okay, so moving on. Paul gave me a nice introduction, so thank you. Okay, so I'm going to outline very quickly what FDA is, or what our mission is really. Where I work in the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, and that's a specific part of the FDA. It reviews all the medical devices that are put in the marketplace. I'm in the renal space. I do all the renal devices. I also do transplant products. So those of you who have had transplants, I'm very involved in all the devices that are used from the time that an organ is taken out of a donor until it is put into a recipient. We're sort of responsible for making sure those devices and solutions and things keep that organ in a safe environment until it gets into the recipient and that it then functions. So that's another whole world that nobody knows about. And I don't just work in kidney there. We work in all the major organs: heart, liver, pancreas, and lung. Anyway, so these are sort of the things I will be talking about, and I won't spend a lot of time looking at the outline. So what is FDA, and what is our mission? What are we responsible for? Overall, we're responsible for protecting the public health. We're there to assure that the foods and drugs and biologics and vaccines and medical devices that you use every day and you use when you go to your doctors and you take every day, that they're safe and they're effective. We also have a number of other roles. And we make sure that the electronic product radiation devices, such as your microwaves, are safe when you stand next to them. Your MRI machines and just daily use equipment is safe. We also assure that cosmetics and dietary supplements are safe and properly labeled, and we now regulate tobacco. Not that we're thrilled about that, but we do regulate tobacco. And then the other last thing on this list I really wanted to point out is we advance the public health by helping to speed products that are new and innovative to the marketplace. And our focus in the Center for Medical Devices and Radiological Health, I'll just call it medical devices for simplicity, is focusing on safety and effectiveness. And we're really now, in the last 5 years, have a big push on innovation and promoting public health to get those new medical devices out to all the patients. So what is at the heart of promoting and protecting and promoting public health? When we look at medical devices, what we're actually doing is we're balancing the benefits of a new device versus the risks. What risks are people willing to take to get a new device on the market? You know, are you going to take a risk to get a new device into nocturnal dialysis space? The whole idea of maybe not having a partner associated with it. What level of risk are people willing to take to get that kind of product on the market and able for you to use it? And what are the risks associated just with mechanical risks or the hypersensitivity risks, all those types of things. And in doing this mission, we focus a lot on patients. If you look at all these parts of our mission, we say we take patients, we're looking at patients and providers, we're looking at consumers and patients. We're trying to see if the products they have are labeled properly. We're making sure they're safe and effective, and we also facilitate innovation. Our mission, our vision, oops, it's not on this slide, I don't think I can make it go higher, but basically our vision for the center, and this has been our vision for the last 5-10 years, we've changed this, is that patients in the United States have access to high quality, safe, and effective medical devices of public health importance first in the world. And the first in the world is sort of the new idea. We have constantly had this phrase in the FDA, and all my colleagues, they'll go, oh yeah, we got the data on that new device. Well, did they do animal studies? No, they used European guinea pigs. European guinea pigs are humans. A lot of the other countries around the world have put devices on the market before the United States does. And part of this we've hidden behind the fact that we want to make sure it's safe, we want to make sure it's effective. And yes, we can still do that, but our goal now is to try to do that, but getting new things out there faster in the United States so you get to try them. Doing it in a slow process, maybe in smaller groups, subgroups, but that is our goal. And I'm here to say we're starting to succeed. Whoops. And again, I forgot to point out here, patients are at the heart of everything we do. If you look back at the history over time with patients and their role when it came to medical care, we started out in this old school, the paternalistic, the provider tells you what to do and you do it. And unfortunately, there's probably still a few providers today that tell you what to do and patients do it. Our goal is to get into this new emerging area where patients play a major role in their decision making, including how we get and what we get on the market from the world of medical devices. As diseases emerge, there's new internets, there's new social media. I know you're going to have a discussion about social media. AAKP is going to work and promote that whole area to help you get to know more about your diseases. And as you get to know more about your diseases, you play a better role. The future for patients is to be more informed and help develop the assessment of medical devices. Our goal is to get you engaged and focus you on the President's mission, which is Precision Medicine Initiative. We're also very interested in collecting data that's out there in the real-world experience and feeding it back to the pre-market world. I'm in the pre-market world. I'm the one that looks at those data before it goes on the market. And we haven't always taken advantage of the data that's being collected in that post-market world and bringing it back very quickly to make new decisions and move products faster. We see patients now as co-pilots in our project. And our goal is to push this as much as we can. It's a very hard initiative because this is very new for us. But as we do this, we're going to try to work closely with patients because patients are taking new devices home now. A lot of you are trying to do dialysis at home, but not just that. You have, if you're diabetic, you have glucose monitors. You have other kinds of little instruments that you're using in your home environment. So as you're learning more about those devices, you need to have an opportunity to feed that back, not just to your doctor, but perhaps to people that can make more decisions. You have new communities. There's patient groups. We're going to take advantage. We're going to try to work with the AAKP to help us, and they along with some of the other patient organizations, to try to get more information gathering together, get patient communities that can help feed into this process. Using social media, and also as new mobile devices become available, how can we use those mobile technologies to sort of monitor you while you're in your day-to-day life in your home environment? So I'd like to just talk a little bit about this initiative, what we call the Patient Preference Initiative. We've formed in our center a working group across the entire center. It isn't just renal focused, it's actually all the devices and all the groups within our center. And our goal of this initiative is to develop a systematic way of eliciting, measuring, and incorporating patient preference information, where appropriate, throughout the total product life cycle of a medical device. So when a medical device is developed, there are different places throughout that cycle of its development where we think we can get patient input. And I'd like to bring that and discuss that here with you for a couple minutes. But as we seek to do this, we realize there's a lot of barriers we have to overcome. We realize that we have to figure out a way, a scientific, regulatory way to get your voice, to get your perspective into what we do. We love to sit and talk, and I think talking and meeting people like this is very helpful to us. It helps us get a better appreciation of the impact of those devices that we approve on your daily life. But how do we get your voice into our decision making? And that's the thing that we are working on at the center. Okay, so what I have here is a diagram of what we would call the life of a medical device. And it starts out at the beginning. I don't know if you can see this pointer. It's not working very well. Right here, this is the section called Discovery and Ideation. This is a time when people think of what kind of medical device would I like to put on the market? How can I make my life better? And so they start developing this. We move from that point into a section to, all right, now let's try it out. We've got a little idea. Let's develop the device. Let's build a prototype, build it, and then you have to test it. First, we test it in the preclinical setting. We test it where it's on the bench. At this time, it's mostly within a lab. It's somebody, and maybe 3 people in a small company trying to figure out if this little thing that they've developed is working. From that point, you move into clinical trials. This is not good. And clinical trials are where we think we can get some patient involvement. From that point, we go into when the device has had clinical trials, you move into a regulatory component. You send it to the FDA. We decide, okay, is that worth going on the market? Is it safe and effective? We make decisions there. You then launch the product, and from there the product goes into a post-market world of trying to assess, okay, is it working? Give feedback. If it's not working, you come back to the circle again. You start over. You figure out how you have to fix it. How do you have to change it? And then you move back into your testing of it, and then maybe clinical trials again if that's necessary. If not, you move right on to launching the product. It's an actual process. Where do we think patients can get involved in this process? This is what I'm here to tell you. Anyone that has been involved in some of our prior initiatives may have seen this and understood this. We need patients at the idea stage. If patients don't get involved in the idea stage, we're just inventing things because some scientist decided it was good, some company decided it was good. We need your voice at that point in time. We also need your voice when we get to the clinical trials. And it can be in multiple ways. We need your voice to say, okay, I'll be in a trial. take that chance. That device might be helpful for me. But we also need your voice on how to design the trial. If we design trials that patients won't come into, then that's a waste of our time. We need to know that we can't have you come in and take blood 5 days in a row because that's not physically convenient to you, and no patient is going to do that. We need to know that you will get into a trial that you are participating in, you will stay enrolled, you won't drop out, and we need patients to say what will keep those patients in the trial from dropping out. We also need you at decision-making, and this is the part where I probably play the biggest role, and my group plays the role. We need patients to help us decide whether a device is the balancing that benefit and the risk of the device. And if the benefits are pretty good, but the risks are like here, about the same level, are we going to put it on the market? Or what if the risks are higher? We need some decision-making, some help to say, maybe there's a subgroup of patients that specific device would be helpful for. So maybe we shouldn't just say, no, company, go away. Maybe we should say, let's tweak it. Let's decide whether we're going to put it on the market and label it for a subgroup. Or we might say, okay, the patients want it. If patients want it and they're willing to take a risk and know those risks, then maybe it should go on the market. So that's what we've been working on a lot in our center. We also need patients to communicate those benefit risks once the product is on the market. Patients like you, and I know you are all interested patients or you wouldn't be here today. I want you to go and spread that word to other people. We need your voice telling other patients and helping your doctors understand the benefit risk of that device that you're using. And finally, we need input on giving that message back to companies, back to people that are going to modify those devices, change them, and improve them. So this is what we call the total product life cycle, and the places that we see patients should be able to get involved. We just have to develop those pathways and make sure that happens. And in some of these, it's going to be a lot with industry. Some of these, it's going to be with academic people. It's going to be people and wherever your doctors and universities, if you work through a university or you're at a university, your locations at a university, they're going to help to come up with these ideas too, but they need you. So once we said this is something that we wanted to do, we decided we should pilot it. Now, unfortunately, we didn't pilot it in the renal space. When this idea first came about, we decided, well, what's something that would have a big impact? And we could make a decision based on a patient preference analysis. And this is for the decision making. This is that part under the regulatory section. So what we chose was obesity devices. I just happened to, at the time, work on obesity devices. I was doing all the overseeing the clinical trials and the approval process for obesity devices at that time, so I was very willing to jump in and get involved in this study. But we had a statistician, and I must say, working with statisticians is not easy. They speak a different language. I don't understand their language, but they try to explain it to me every day, and I'm very patient. I just want it put in simple terms, and so that's what I'm going to try to do for you, but this really is a fairly complex process. So we had this Dr. Telba Irony that's on this slide. She's actually a very great innovator, and she's always pushing. I can't get this thing to work. Anyway, she's always pushing to try to get patients, do more things with patient preference. So we chose these obesity devices and we piloted a study, and we gathered together, we had a contractor called RTI who helped us do this. They had a group of 750 obese patients that had either tried some type of obesity weight loss or were interested in thinking about whether they wanted to. And what we did, it's very hard to set these things up, but basically when you do a survey, and this was a survey that they sat down and they filled out, you have to decide what you're going to ask them about, and you have to come up with attributes. And understanding patient preferences is really a way of saying, if a device has all these attributes, what's the risk with those attributes that I'm willing to take to get it on for the benefits that I'm going to get? So we balanced the risks and benefits. So we looked at things like what type of operation. Is this an open surgical operation? Is it an endoscopic operation? We looked at, when you got this device, what will you eat? Can you eat a little bit? Can you eat a lot? Can you eat every day, every hour? Can you stop, not eat for a certain period of time? We looked at how much weight loss a patient would like to lose. We also looked at how long you want that weight loss to stay off. For anyone that's been on a diet, you can lose the weight, but you can't keep it off. And would these medical devices that we're putting in your body be able to help you keep that weight off? And we also looked whether it would improve your comorbidities. Would it help your diabetes? We also looked to say, well, what other were the side effects that you had? Make a long story short, we set up something that looks like this, which is very difficult to follow, but basically what we did was you bounce. You get a set of questions, and you may not like the choices in the questions, but that's part of the whole analysis. What is your best choice? We call it discrete choice statistical methodology. So in this case, we had a patient, we gave you two choices. Do you want to have an endoscopic procedure? You wait 4 hours between eating. You will lose 30 pounds of weight loss. You'll keep it off for 5 years. It decreases the prescriptions, drugs that you have to take, but on average, your side effects will last about a month. However, you have a 10% chance of dying if you have this procedure. And you're going to balance that against something where you're going to lose 60 pounds. You're only going to keep it off for about a year, and you'll probably gain it all back. It's going to last a year. Your side effects are going to last an entire year. You're going to be nauseous and throw up and not feel well for an entire year. So you had to choose between these. Nobody likes either choice, but majority of the people in this case chose B. They didn't want to die. There's only a 1% chance of dying. So we took a lot of these from these 600 people, we analyzed it, and we decided, we came to a conclusion, and I'm only going to point out 2 points about this conclusion. Number one is that from this, we realized that we could do something with this process. We developed a guidance document, and also from this, we realized we could develop a mathematical tool, complicated tool, that we just plug in numbers. And when we have a new device that we're going to put on the market, we do the clinical study, we have these numbers, we plug them in, and then it tells us, are patients willing to take a risk to have this device on the market? And I'm here to tell you that we did use this tool. We've used it for 3 of the most recent medical device approvals. These are for obesity devices. The 3 here, little pictures around here. The first one is a device that stimulates the stomach, the vagus nerve, and allows you to lose some weight. You don't lose a lot of weight, but you lose some weight. The second one is this reshaped device. This is a double balloon that you put in your stomach endoscopically. This was just approved in July 2015, and people lose, again, some weight for short periods of time. This is often called the "my daughter's getting married" device, or I'm going to my high school reunion device. You can put it in for a while. It's in your stomach. You feel nauseous. You don't want to eat. And then you can have it taken out. So they're reversible. So that was, one of the balancing things. And the third device is the Obera intragastric balloon, another balloon. This one is a little funny because you swallow it as a capsule and then it blows up in your stomach. And then same kind of a thing. You can take it out at some point later on. Somewhat similar to the one I just talked about. That was approved in August 2015. So just point out this chart. So where did these sort of fall as we could see them on a chart? So if we developed a chart that says what are the risks of a medical device and what is the benefits, in this case it was weight loss. What do we have on the market now? Well, this is surgery, way up here. It has high risks, but you lose a lot of weight when you have obesity surgery. Anyone that's had this bypass surgeries, you can run into a lot of problems with it, but it does work and it lasts for a fairly long time. And down on the bottom, we have diet and exercise. So diet and exercise may or may not work. We sort of see it in this lower area. And then we have some capsules, some pills. I mean, there aren't very many pills by drugs, and they put one on the market, they take it off. They put one on the market, they take it off. They don't really work. So they're down here. And then at the same time, FDA had approved one device that's been on the market for quite a while. It's called the gastric banding system. It's a surgical procedure where you go in and actually put a band around the upper part of your stomach. It makes your stomach smaller. You feel full, you don't eat. But it has problems. It has various risks. So along came these new devices. Where do they fall? Well, they sort of fall in this area, right here. They have a certain level of risks. Some are a little higher than others. Their benefit is sort of medium. So when we first looked at these, if you lose, some of them use 10 pounds. Who's going to put that on the market? 10 pounds. But when we plugged it into this patient preference analysis algorithm, we decided, yes, there are patients out there that really want this device. We had a percentage that said they will use this. So we decided to approve it. And we just did this. And I'm very happy to say that our experiment worked. And now I'd like to see how we can put this same experiment into the world of renal. Is there some things that we can do in this whole renal environment to try to get things on the market that we might not have approved in the past? So as I move forward, I'm going to take a little step back to say about the same time we were developing all of this patient preference decision-making tools that we're going to figure out how to get patients more involved in the regulatory space, we also did 2 things. We worked with an outside group that helped us develop our ideas, but at the same time we had started what we called the Innovation pathway project. And this was in the renal space. We invited the industry to submit to FDA applications to say, I'm going to invent a new device in the renal space, and we didn't restrict what it would be. We kind of wanted it to be in pediatrics, but no, they didn't want us to restrict it. So we asked, okay, and we wanted to be innovative. We wanted to be a breakthrough technology. We don't want there to be a lot of alternatives out there. And remember, I do a lot in dialysis, so we figured we were going to get a lot in the world of dialysis. And we wanted to have a significant clinically meaningful advantage over anything else that's on the market. And we got 32 applications. We thought we'd get 5. We got 32 applications. We were all sort of in shock. So we had to sit down and spend a lot of time figuring out how do we actually decide who goes into this innovation pathway. And we just finally decided to choose 3 different devices. The 3 devices, you can see them on here, they're not overly big, but one of the devices was called the hemo access valve system. And this was, it helped, it related to an AV graft, and it helped, you would sort of close off the graft. It wouldn't allow blood to go when you're not on dialysis, and you'd open the valve, and then you'd get blood flow during dialysis. The other device was a wearable artificial kidney that you wear around your waist. It's sort of taking dialysis and miniaturizing it on a belt. And the third device was the one you heard about yesterday from Dr. Fassel. This is the implantable bioartificial kidney. So we have been and even though he was like blaming me for not getting those devices on the market, I'm going to turn it back on him, and he's not here to defend himself today. He has a lot of work to go yet, but he's making great strides. And we worked with those companies, these 3 companies, weekly. Every week we met with these companies. And we didn't sit down, we would sit on the phone a lot of it because they were all around the country, but we'd talk about it. And they'd say, we're interested in fluid dynamics for small little vessels. And so we would pull in experts around the entire FDA and bring them in and say, let's talk about this. Here's what we know about that. What do you know about that? Can we come to an agreement on where you should go with it? We spent that kind of effort and time. Now, for those who have ever worked in a company, that's unheard of. We just don't normally have that kind of time. But we decided to put the effort, and every day my staff complained a little bit. Carolyn, I can't make my deadlines if I have to do that. I'd say, yes, you can. Just open your mind and do it. You can do it. And actually, we learned to say, we really realized we liked it. We enjoyed that daily, weekly interaction, some a little more than others, but it became actually fun because as we met with them and we saw the things they were doing and the strides they were making, and this implantable bioartificial kidney started from nothing, an idea. And granted, they were out there fundraising, getting money, getting ideas, and moving forward. It became a reality. And I don't want to spend, I know I'm going to use up all my time here, but I just want to tell you that the wearable artificial kidney has gone into clinical trials. They've done at least 7 patients. They're now currently going to reevaluate and make improvements because you'll see in another picture I'll have in a second that it is actually, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. I keep doing that. It actually is a cumbersome device to wear. I have another picture with a patient, but it was able to treat in 7 patients and move it forward. The bioartificial kidney is making great strides. The hemo access device I don't have as much information on, but I'm hoping they're continuing. They're in clinical trials too. So, all right, so we had the innovation pathway. At the same time, one more thing happened, and that is that we got together with a group of people from the American Society of Nephrology. Dr. Ron Falk, who many of you may know from Chapel Hill, came to FDA and he said, I don't understand why that new drug just got approved for a heart disease, and nobody even had one single nephrologist at the table at that advisory meeting to say, what are the impacts on the kidney? How many patients are going to lose their kidney function because they took that heart medication? And nobody even discussed it. And so he said, FDA, I think we need to start a partnership. Are you willing to do that? And we said, yes. And actually, it went all the way up to our commissioner. She was very excited to do this. So we started this back a few years ago. I think you heard a little bit from Todd Ibrahim yesterday about the Kidney Health Initiative, so I won't spend a lot of time on it right here. But it has been fantastic. And one of the things that the committee has done, and by the way, these are the pioneering members, and notice this top person way up here. Can I get it? Anyway, it's the American Association of Kidney Patients. Your organization was one of the first people to join this. So it's not just FDA and ASN, it's all these organizations. And what do we bring to the table? We bring in a place for us to talk, a place for us to come up with ideas. And that's exactly what this organization has started to do. And we were sitting around, I actually happened to be on the board of directors, and we were sitting around discussing ideas, and they made us all go around the table and say, okay, what's an idea you'd like to do in a project with the Kidney Health Initiative? So when it finally got to me, I thought, we have this new thing about obesity patient preference. I want to do something that's related to patient preference in the renal space. So we decided, well, how do we begin? We thought, well, let's begin with a workshop. Let's bring people together and get ideas, because we can't come up with all the ideas. We need the patients to help us come up with the ideas. So that's what we did. This project began. It was focused on the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring the Center for Drugs into it. At the time, they sort of have their own thing that they're doing, but we did decide to convene the workshop. And we formed a working group, which was combined with academia, industry, patients, FDA, and we started the planning. And we realized after the very beginning that the patients weren't talking on the call. It's like, does any of the patients want to say something? And finally, a patient spoke up and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, you have your minds made up. You know what you're going to do. And we're going, what? What? That's not at all what we were talking about. We want input. So we realized we needed to do something first. So we decided we had to take a step back. We had to educate patients a little bit about the FDA process, that total product life cycle that I showed you a little bit earlier. We had to tell you what that is. So you could think about where could patients get involved in a patient preference type study, a patient perspective type analysis with the FDA. So we also at the time thought about, as we did this, we took this step back and we realized that, and I'll go into this in a second, we realized that, so I like my first line in here is, if you build it, they will come, and the answer was nobody was coming, and that's why we had to take this step back. So we decided we'd get the buy-in, and the next thing that we actually did was we decided to develop a video to try to invite patients to come and hear about what we were doing, our whole idea of patient preference. And that video was put out by many societies. I'm hoping that many of you may have already seen it. I'm going to show it to you again. It was very stimulating, and this video was put together by a patient. It had a whole working group of people advising this patient, but Celeste Lee, who was at the University of Michigan, she took this to her video people, and we came up with the ideas, we worked on the script, we put it together, and she made it happen. And that is so exciting that a patient actually got something done that has a fantastic impact on what FDA is going to do. Our next step, and I'll show you the video, was that we had to develop a webinar. We had to do some education. And so we created a webinar, and that webinar is available for you to look at now if you wanted to. We have it on a Kidney Health Initiative website. So I'd like to just play the video real quick, because every time I see this video, and I have seen it many times, I still get excited about it. So let me just play it, and it's a call to action for patients. Now let's see if I can get this to work.
I'm Cece,
Sound.
a fellow kidney disease patient. For 33 years, I've done dialysis, both I had a transplant for 10 years, and as you can imagine, too many pills, shots, and accesses to mention. As kidney patients, you and I both know that a few things in life are not optional. Strength, courage, persistence, and determination. No matter what life throws at us, we try to stay balanced, maintain our routine, and remain positive. But let's face it, we are often in a holding pattern. Kidney disease treatments have not changed much over the years. The options for patients like us have largely remained the same for many years. You want to help change that? We need you. Each day we're asked to share our lives with our treatment. But now let's share our voice, ideas, opinions from patients like us. They matter. Key people are realizing our voices matter too. Here's what I found out. The Food and Drug Administration, often known as the FDA, is looking for patients living with kidney disease, like you and me, to provide input on how potential treatments of the future could look. Picture a big table. Around it are dialysis caregivers, researchers, doctors, nurses, and companies providing new products and treatments. They want us and our families to sit beside them and have a seat at this table. We'll work together to bring potential new treatment options, safe and effective ones, and ones that patients like you and me want and need. Imagine the future of your treatment. What does it look like? How does it improve your day-to-day life? This future doesn't have to remain just a dream. Join me and other patients to contribute our thoughts and make our ideas a possible reality. This is my invitation to you. Lend your voice and work with the people who can help make it happen, with one shared goal: living better with kidney disease. To learn more about how to share your voice and work with people to help make it happen and sign up for a webinar, go to kidneyhealthinitiative.org. There you will find webinar dates and times and more information. So please join us.
Isn't that nice? Okay, trying to hit an escape button. I got it. Sorry. Okay, so thank you, and I agree. And you can see that video as many times as you want. Please go to that website, and also the webinar, which teaches you a little bit more of what I told you about product life cycle. Just to tell you that after that happened, we then had a workshop. And some of you, I can look at some familiar faces. I see a few who were at that workshop, and I thank you. The Kidney Health Initiative co-sponsored this. In fact, they paid for a number of patients. They paid for the workshop. That was part of our partnering with them. And we had this workshop in Baltimore, Maryland, in August. It was a 2-day workshop. We had some fantastic speakers, including your own president, Paul Conway, who gave one of our opening speeches, which was outstanding. We also had Rob Califf, who has now been actually put forward as a potential new commissioner for the FDA. And those were some of our speakers to start it out. And the rest of the speakers were very patient-oriented people that want to do studies and get involved with patients. What our plan is that we had this workshop, and at that forum, we provided a forum for patients to actually use their voice and express their concerns and preferences about their treatments. And we also discussed how to incorporate the patient feedback back into the various phases of medical device development. It was really good. So what are we going to do with this? We now have a group of patients and people, another little subgroup within our group, who's helping to put together a patient-friendly summary of that workshop. We're almost there. We're still working on it. We'll have it out soon. It'll go to the website, and we're hoping we will distribute it to the various organizations, especially AAKP, and they can pass it out to our people, to all of you, so that you can see what we talked about and then what are we going to do next. There is a group, a patient family and care partnership program in the Kidney Health Initiative. It's a subgroup within the Kidney Health Initiative that's very patient-focused. It's a committee. Some of the people from here may be on that committee. I think you're already board members of that committee, and they're going to sort of help guide the Kidney Health Initiative, who works with FDA, and how to get patients more involved. There were some recurring themes that were very important at that meeting. One was that patients, important that patients be proactive to improve their care, and the other was that we need an online forum for engaging kidney community to continue those discussions. And I believe Paul Conway is going to continue that whole initiative with your group, and you're going to talk about putting together a kidney community. It is our goal to get these kidney communities so that we can feed back into you, back and forth, so we can get advice. So we're going to use that as one of our future forums. We also heard that people would like more workshops, so we're going to try to work on that and try to find a way to keep that communication going. I did want to tell you, because Paul had asked me to mention briefly some of the devices. One of the things we did at that workshop was we had some of the new device technologies come to the workshop and talk about their products. Now, these are products that are not on the market yet. Well, maybe one or two of them might be getting close. But normally FDA doesn't get public about things that are under development. But we asked these companies if they were willing to talk about it, and they did. And I'll just point them out very quickly to you. New things coming down the pike, because we thought you'd be interested. The one you heard about is the bioartificial kidney. They came and talked a little bit about their device. Down here we have a device under development from the Dutch Kidney Foundation. I think somebody from Holland is going to speak later today. This is a miniaturized hemodialysis machine. It's pretty tiny, like this. I've seen it at some meetings already because they're working on it. The other one is a miniaturized, in this lower called the Dialyse. That device is a miniaturized peritoneal dialysis system. So any of the big systems you have in your homes, these are all going to come down smaller in your dialysis clinics. Down here is a picture of the wearable kidney on a patient that was in one of the trials with that wearable study. And the one that's right next to it is the AWAC Technologies new wearable peritoneal dialysis system. And most of those devices are still under investigation, but they're things that are being developed. And I know there's a lot more things out there being developed. These are just people that were willing to come. They also gave me permission to put this on the slide today just to reiterate that they're working on these products. And they're working with us. And they're working with us in different ways. So anyway, I will like to move fast. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll keep moving. But again, communication is our big thing with the next steps. The future of ESRD therapies is we would like to make devices that are smaller, lighter, interactive, portable, wearable, permanently implanted. Those are some of the things that FDA is working with for patients, and we need you to help us figure that out. We need patient input for these changes. We need patient-friendly device design. We need patient-informed clinical trials. We need patient view on the risk and benefits. How much risk are you willing to take to put a new device out there? Are you willing to do nocturnal dialysis by yourself in your home without a partner? Right now, we make people label for a partner. That's something we're thinking about in the future as a potential project. What risk are patients willing to take? And then patient labeling. How can we improve patient labeling so that everybody understands the device better? There's where we need the really input. The total product life cycle, we need your perspective on that entire realm of the product life cycle. How can you get involved? There are many ways. The Kidney Health Initiative has the website that they mentioned on the slide. There's a handout on your table which mentions a number of websites and ways that you can get in touch with us. There is also, I just want to mention this very briefly, FDA does have an FDA patient network under our Office of Health and Constituent Affairs. I think AAKP and other advocacy groups have gone to them and talked to them whenever there's been something that's come up that's been problematic. I think EPO was a big one when there were problems with EPO. But there are other things. So it's for all patient groups, but in the renal space, we suggest you use it. Other ways so this is just telling you, and the website is on that piece of paper, but they have a website. You can actually go on and see new medical devices are being developed. They talk about webinars and in-person meetings. Other ways patients can get involved with the FDA besides this new patient preference attendee is you can attend public workshops. This mentions a couple. This week we have a 2-day workshop coming up on patient labeling, how to improve patient labeling across all of the Center for Devices to get the message out in general. There's also a workshop, I think, Monday for the drug group on endpoints for clinical trials for renal transplantation. So we're always having meetings. You can look at this website and see what they are. Drugs does have their own program for patient-focused, get patient involvement. It's called Patient-Focused Drug Development Meetings. On the website, you can find meetings that they have, and you can attend these. Coming up, they were supposed to do about 23 of these. They have a few more to go. They're on this slide. The one that might be of interest is patients who have received organ transplant. They're going to meet to talk about that, and patients get to stand there and talk to the drugs people. It's not the device people, but it's us. Patient representative program, you can be a patient representative on a panel, advisory panel. There's one per every advisory panel that we have at the FDA, and you can get involved in that way. You can also go to a public meeting and you can speak. If anyone heard about the Assure panel meeting that was held on Friday, this is a device that was put into the fallopian tubes to prevent pregnancy. There were 49, mostly women, but there were a few men there that came and spoke about problems they saw with those devices. Now, that was after the market, post-market. So now FDA is going to take back the messages that they heard in the advisory panel weighed in on. You can go and speak about any of these issues. Another way to get involved is to submit comments to the Federal Register. Anything that you see online, you can comment on it, and then go back. There's a lot of things in our patient network that you can see. Looking forward, I just wanted to relay that CDRH is committed to integrating the patient voice into our regulatory decision-making. We are developing guidances, we're developing things that you can put out there to read, that the industry can read, that the academic people can read, that the patients can read, trying to move it forward. We encourage all the patient groups to get involved. With these programs, we encourage them to work with us with industry. You can also get your voice out by improve communication on benefit risk, try to understand it so that if you come to the table, we can talk same language. We encourage thinking about patient-reported outcome measurements that you could use in a clinical trial. What would be really important to you that we could use as a tool in a trial to measure it to see if that's a way to approve a new medical device. We do have one more brand new announcement to make. This just came out last week. We have a new Patient Engagement Advisory Committee. This is a committee that is going to consist of only patients. So, and we're still trying to decide what the issues would be. We're thinking about having them advise us on ways to include and foster participation by other patients. We're going to use this committee to advise CDRH on patient perspectives about current and new approaches or policies for integrating the patient voice. And we're going to use them as a resource in any way we can to try to get the patients more involved. This committee has just announced for participants, if you are interested in this committee, you can send your CV. There's a website, it's on that sheet of paper that I gave you, you can send. If you want to get involved and speak at FDA, this is a group that's going to be only patients, and you can direct how we move forward in getting your voice out there. And the targeted first meeting will be in 2016. So please look that over and try to get involved. In summary, patients are at the heart of what we do. Patients have a unique perspective. We're trying to get that perspective on benefit risk into our decision making. We are committed at the Center for CDRH, and I do believe the FDA in general is committed. We just all approach it slightly differently, but very committed to getting the regulatory decision making involving patients. We have a significant progress so far. We have a long way to go. We're trying to keep that ball rolling, and you should have a role. That's your information sheet, and I'd just like to end with this one slide. It says, what experience have we learned? And I actually borrowed this slide from our Dutch counterparts at the Kidney Foundation because I liked it so much. You know, it's trying to think about the percent of time discussing the needs of patients in healthcare. How much time is spent, and what does it mean? If you have a lot of time spent with patients, it can lead to getting to the table and actually sitting down and discussing how to move forward and improve your life as patients, all of our lives as patients. Or if we can just go the way we've been going without patients, without having patients included, and where does that get to us? A road to nowhere. I thank you very much for your time, and I'll take any questions that you may have. So. Do we have any questions? Do we have time for questions? Okay.
Yeah, I found out about balloon therapy, and it is $6,000. How can we afford to get some of these devices?
I'm going to ask Paul to invite the Center for Medicare Services, the CMS. I mean, that is a payment, and I think if we could start to engage CMS more, I think we would move a lot farther. The FDA is trying to engage them right now in decision-making so that we get products sort of parallel review, where we review a device for getting it on the market. At the same time, CMS weighs in, and they say, okay, we'll pay for it if it does the trial this way, and try to combine those trials. We've been pushing, and we have a whole Office of Innovation in our center level that's pushing that. We here see the same roadblocks that you're seeing, but we're trying. I don't have an answer right now, but that is the problem. We need to make that point clear on why people need these kinds of products out there. We also, with our innovation pathway, we tried to work very hard with our patients, with those groups, those companies, and they're small companies. These aren't big companies that we were dealing with. We took them to CMS. We went with them. We learned a lot, too, while we sat at the table with CMS, trying to see how payment could be paralleled with getting these devices on the market. So we don't have an answer now, but we are working on it. Thank you. Yes?
Yes, ma'am. I looked at the next stage yesterday, and some questions occurred to me last night. How do they handle the EPO because it's so expensive? How do they handle ordering the products in order to do your dialysis?
Yeah, unfortunately, you'll probably have to ask that to next stage. There are a lot of next stage people in this room, and I wonder if one of them would like to comment on that. I know there are people that are using their systems.
Thank you. I'm Tony Martin from Mason, Ohio, and we just started on Next Stage Home Hemo last year with my daughter as a partner that's 19 years old. took us 10 years to get it from California to Ohio. It was available, but it wasn't accessible. Medicare covers home hemotherapies, just like peritoneal. My insurance is Medicare, and I have secondary Medicaid. So my next stage product, the machine, the training, the supplies are all covered by Medicare. The 20% Medicare don't cover goes to Medicaid, like a secondary. And even with that, a lot of these entities have like patient financial assistance programs that you can fill out and send in and have the dwindle down the remaining balance. As far as EPO, we are instructed on how to give ourselves our EPO, so we don't have to go to the clinic for EPO. The only thing you do have to do is if you're on Venifer for iron, you have to go to the clinic for that to be administered, because if Venifer is pushed too fast, it can stop your heart. It's more of an insurance issue, not a training issue.
Does that help?
That goes into the system itself. So that you don't have to have the product she's talking about. Do you know if it's available for the next stage 2, or is it just for the clinics?
Yeah, I don't think it's available yet for them. I think it's only in the clinics right now. But we could get a patient voice study going, get a patient preference study going to see if we should move it.
Hi, I have a question. Over here, right here. So you see you're talking to. I have a question regarding the process and devices. I noticed on the screen that was recently approved the Next to Me device through Next Stage. Like it's been out for a while.
Yes, that one.
Since the FDA took the measures to go through all the different steps of having it, investigated, trialed, and approved, and it's supposed to be available to the public, to be able to use. How is it that when somebody is using the next stage equipment and wants to gain access to that particular thing that was approved, that it's not available to them to be able to gain access to it? Like where we are located at our particular clinic, they haven't rolled it out, they don't have access to it, or they've not taken the measures to do it when it's there, and it would definitely benefit the patient. And I don't understand, there's like some sort of disconnect there. Is that the type of feedback that you look for after a device has been released?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of feedback that the company needs to hear too.
I've mentioned it to people here and that kind of thing. And when I explored it through the hierarchy, what I was told is, well, gee, you could switch dialysis centers and clinics and gain access to this device because it's available in another part of your city, which is like 25 or 30 miles from where we live. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I'm comfortable going to the clinic I've been going to for the past 2 years. Why can't we have that? You know what I mean? That's a concern that I have, and I'd like to know how I could voice that opinion to make it known, if it might benefit other people. I think you've gone through a lot of trouble to get that approved through the process, to make it available because it's going to be a benefit to people. Why can't everyone, once it is approved, obtain access to it?
Yeah, I mean, those are issues that are directly dealt with by the firms, but getting that kind of feedback can help us interact and ask the company also. Once we approve something, we don't have control over where or how it's used. I mean, it can be used, it should be used according to the label, of course, but if a company chooses to wait 3 years to roll out a product, we don't have control over that once we've approved it. But at the same time, we can have more interactions with them. And there may be things that just are unclear. Perhaps the networking system's not right, or perhaps it needs to be attached to a newer model of device than what you have. And those are things that feedback is very important to us. So I would take that directly to the firm more than just, I mean, if you talk to the firm, you said you've gotten feedback, but I wasn't sure where your feedback's from.
Well, yes. Well, we went to our individual dialysis center, and they worked up through their hierarchy as well. It's available to the same dialysis company makes it available to other dialysis centers
It could be that they have to do certain software updates to your area, and that they have to do that in a very timely manner. I mean, that's an internet-type program, and you may not have exactly in your area what's needed. So I just keep working with them so they don't forget about you, because if you speak, they hear you and make noise, and they'll know you're still there. But sometimes those things come out in a review process, and we try to ask those broad questions. How available would this be? Does everyone have to have certain levels of changes to their current machines in order to incorporate some new component? And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no. I mean, we just, we don't have control, but we can feed that back. And this is a good thing to bring, type of thing to bring back to the Kidney Health Initiative's patient group. These are the kinds of discussions we're talking about getting people involved in, so that feedback isn't just you talking to one person, you're one group, but you can feed that back. FDA may or not be directly involved in that discussion, but we will be part of it as the group. So yes, and I would send an email to the Kidney Health Initiative and see if they can start to just help you get some answers if you're not getting the answer. Yes?
Hi, good afternoon, good morning. I'm post-transplant, and regarding anti-rejection medications, I know there have been some other studies regarding DNA and initiating that will have transplant form. So hopefully, I think the women, and I mean, the question was regarding post-transplant and rejection medications, and also the studies that I know that have been going on regarding different types of, and from what I understand, things perhaps with DNA and at transplant, at the point of transplant or previous. So I think they're maybe injecting, and I know nothing about this other than eventually lowering
The immune response to the organ?
Pardon me?
You're eventually decreasing the rejection?
Yeah, decreasing the rejection. What's the future for that?
Well, I'm not in the Center for Drugs, or that might be, or the Center for Biologics. You heard a little bit at yesterday's talk from Dr. Scanlon from Stanford, who's working on stem cell technologies to help that. So, I mean, I'm not really up on that right now. All those are ongoing. I do know the Center for Drugs has a workshop, as I said, on Monday, and I'm sure things like that will be brought up because they're talking about how to improve the endpoints in clinical trials for immunosuppressive agents. So tune into that workshop and maybe you can ask a question there, because I think that'd be the best place to do it. And you just go on that website and you try to connect, and they will ask for the people to ask questions from the public. So I'm sorry I don't have the answer right now. Okay.
Folks, yesterday we talked about the fact that the American Association of Kidney Patients had just stood up the new Center for Patient Engagement and Advocacy. And this is going to be an online portal from AAKP that will help you be equipped with social media skills, advocacy skills. But the other thing that it will do is this platform will allow you to better connect with your federal government so that you can participate in many of the things that Dr. Neuland talked about. And along that line, this is the first year that we're doing this, but AAKP has set up an award for National Patient Engagement and Advocacy. And I'd just like to read this for a second. This is being presented to Dr. Neuland this morning. And it's for outstanding service to the kidney patient community and for representing our voices and desire for independence in decisions regarding life-saving technologies. This is the inaugural award. Dr. Neuland has earned it, and it's with great gratitude that we give this to one of America's finest public servants. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to actually be here until about 5 o'clock today. If you have any other questions, you can just come find me and talk to me. Thank you.